So I'm bringing up Donna and Jen on the screen, who will be the host and the speaker for the next piece. Hi, Jen. Hi, Donna. Donna, it's day again.
It's day again. Look, it's like there's light outside. I'm awake. But of course, the consequence to me being awake with light outside is that I missed 8 hours of amazing talks. So I'm quite sad about that, though. You wouldn't want me on stage.
I would like to say that is a problem that cannot be fixed, but there will be recordings which we will be gradually releasing in the coming days and weeks. Yeah. So if you're listening and you feel that you missed something or terrible, what you did miss might be the option to ask questions or interact on our Miro board, or to interact with some other people in the People tab, where you can, meet random people who are other attendees and start a chat or discussion with them. You also miss the opportunity to go into the session Q&A and interact live with our speakers, but the talk itself you will be able to get. And before we continue, I'd also sort of like to bring up some of our main sponsors.
Oh, I should have worn my hoodie. I've got a UX Pin hoodie that I wear all the time.
Now, where is it? So we have UX Pin.
It's in the watch.
Our sponsors, Zekai. So very much appreciative of them. Veritron, who will be a company who will be presenting later on as well. They are one of our favorite types of people, because they don't only contribute, but they actually bring a topic that is very specific to our themes. We also have Optimal Workshop.
And I have that hoodie as well.
We have Whitespace. You have all the hoodies, and we have Whitespace. And of course, we have you. So thank you very much to all the speakers who are with us, and to our supporting sponsors who are making this all possible. Donna, anything else you'd want to add?
Only that I'm really looking forward to Jen's talk. No, I mean, I'm going to go check out the Miro board and see what's been going on while I had a snooze. I'm sure there's tons of stuff. I want to see who's been up all night. I'm going to look at the photos from people's windows, and I haven't seen what Johannes's last challenge was either. So I'm going to go check out the Miro and see what's over there.
Great. And for those who are here and don't want to leave the stage because they're afraid they might miss something, we also have polls. So we have the chat area in the right-hand side, the chat area. Am I pointing to the right direction? Probably not.
Which one?
The chat, the polls, and the Q&A. So in the polls, there are various polls that are being released every now and again. So we previously had one that is becoming quite an important one now in the European African area, with here in CET times and big midnight. What is it that keeps you up during, keeps you awake when your body is struggling? Coffee, tea, energy drink, or your love for UX. So you can vote on that one. And luckily, it's overwhelmingly the love for UX, except for me. Because my love for UX went into the preparation, and now I need an extra boost of energy drink as well. If only they sponsored us, but they didn't, so I can't tell what it is. But let me also plot another poll there, which will be: how long have you been here with 24 hours of UX? Is it since the beginning, or you didn't even know that there are multiple talks? So go over there and vote. And in the meantime, we will introduce Jan. So Jan, welcome. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
So what we'll have now is the next hour will be built up of two shorter calls. So Jan's will be the first one with presenting your UX work using spontaneous talks frameworks. And Jan is here from the UX research and strategy community, which is one of those communities which doesn't really have like a specific place, whereas UX Geneva, the one that I represent, we are based in Geneva, Switzerland, but UX research and strategy is really by design or by birth, a global community, if I understand it correctly, Jen?
It has, and we actually had Donna as a guest speaker. Oh, it was for World IA Day. I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, Donna.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started in the Dallas, Texas, USA area. COVID hit, and we went global. So now we have speakers from all over the world.
It was very funny for communities that sort of, I think that some sort of went on a hiatus, some went full global, and what we did is we just met up with others and created a big event. So there's multiple ways to cope and get the most out of a problem. So this is really around turning a problem into an opportunity. But I'll stop right there. Jen, the stages are yours to talk about these spontaneous frameworks. For all the people who are here, the attendees, please post your questions in the Q&A. And we'll be here in the background, Jen, listening in. And if there's any problem, then we'll join in. But for now, the stage is yours.
Perfect. Just want to make sure you can see my screen. It looks
Now
like it. All
sure.
right, great. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I have a lot to cover tonight, so I'm going to jump right in. And thank you for the fabulous introduction. Again, my name is Jen Blatz, and I'm a user experience researcher and designer in the United States, working for Rocket Mortgage. And I also am one of the co-founders and president of UX Research and Strategy, which Peter talked about earlier, and would love for you to join our community. We're found on LinkedIn, Instagram, all your favorite social media outlets. But enough about me. Let's get back to presenting your design work with spontaneous talks frameworks. And let's talk about stories. We know that people love stories. People remember details around stories that, say, pull at your heartstrings, or maybe they motivate you to take action against an injustice. And stories pack a pretty powerful punch. And we're told time and time again to use stories to share our UX work when we're presenting our UX work. And sure, we can use stories when we want to share research findings as well. We can tell them what we observed in a research session. Or we can show how a participant has struggled using a product or our service. We can also use compelling quotes to add sentiment when we're sharing our research findings or how a participant went through a usability test. So stories pack a pretty powerful punch. But we're here to talk about spontaneous talks frameworks. And they're a little bit different than your traditional story or fairy tale, which has rising action and a climax and characters. Heck, I might even say that we're not even talking about stories at all when we're talking about spontaneous talks frameworks, because they're less about telling tall tales and more about quickly organizing your thoughts using a framework. Who doesn't love a framework? Who doesn't love a shortcut to get them organized quickly so they can jump right in and get going? And who doesn't love a way to reduce anxiety when talking to other people? I know I love all these things. And that's what spontaneous talks frameworks do as well. They help you organize your thoughts to present your UX designs or your research findings to your team or your stakeholders. And spontaneous talks frameworks can help you answer questions on the spot. And finally, they can be a fabulous crutch when you need to speak on a topic that you haven't prepared in advance. So I hope you're ready for some on your feet thinking, because that's where we're going. Now, I'm going to be throwing some abbreviations at you today, and I don't want you to feel bad if you don't remember them all. We're only human, and you do the best that you can. And I'm going to have a summary slide at the end. You might want to take a screen grab of so that you can remember what they are. And I want to talk about what I want you to get from this talk today. I want you to understand, first I want you to know about these spontaneous talks frameworks so that you can know what your answer is. And so that you can feel confident when you're speaking because you know what your answer is. And then finally, just do it so that you can give an answer because you feel a bit more confident because you've used a framework to structure your answer in a more organized way. So I hope you're familiar with the idea of chunking. And what that is, it's a way to organize information into smaller bits of into pieces. And a classic example of this is a phone number. And that a phone number is often broken into smaller segments like you see here. If somebody rattled off a long number without breaking it into pieces, for me, I would never be able to understand it or write it down. And that's what spontaneous talks frameworks do as well. They help you break up your answer or your story or your topic into smaller, consumable chunks. So it's easier for you to organize and remember. So I first heard about this topic when I was watching a YouTube video starring Matt Abrahams. And he's a lecturer at a university in the United States. And he was talking about how to become a more engaging speaker. And if you want to watch him on YouTube, I recommend it. It's really a cool talk. And when he started talking about spontaneous talks frameworks, and after I saw his talk, I got really inspired. Now I want to switch for a minute and talk about fear. Now, I don't know about you, but there are times when I am put on the spot, I'm asked a tricky question, and I kind of freeze, like a deer in headlights. Oh, and what I mean is, like, I stop, I have a little bit of an internal panic, and I try to come up with an eloquent answer. But instead, I spit out a bunch of garbage that doesn't seem to make any sense. And this has happened to me a time or two in a job interview. I don't know about you, but I've been there. And, but now that I know about spontaneous talks frameworks, I can use this thought organization technique to answer anything and to present my UX work. So here is what the process looks like. You're presented with a topic or a question. You take a second to think about the frameworks that I'm going to share with you today and pick a framework that you might use to structure your answer. Then share an organized response, not a rambling, chaotic hot mess of jumbled words that might not make any sense. So now that we know a little bit about where they came from and what got Jen inspired to do this talk, let's just jump in and start talking about some different frameworks and how you might apply them to presenting your UX work. The first one I'm going to talk about is what, so what, now what. This framework was actually developed in the 1970s, and it's simply answering these three questions. First, what? What happened or what is going to happen? Then, so what? Tell them why it is important or what lessons we might learn from this. And then finally, now what? What are we going to do next, or what should we do moving forward? What, so what, now what? And I think that this framework is really great for sharing UX work because it gives you an opportunity to share a little bit of context surrounding your designs. So let's say you're presenting some wireframes on a new updated interface, and you tested the designs and you want to share what you learned from testing. And first you tell them what the design is trying to address, what problem you're trying to solve, who is this design helping? Again, providing that little bit of context, the what. Then you tell them why it matters, why this new design is going to improve a user's life. And finally, You tell them why this change is going to make a difference with the iterations that you're going to make in the next round. Talk about what you're going to do next. So what I'm going to do for these frameworks is I'm going to switch from Jen talking at 24 hours UX to Jen presenting UX work. And when I do that, I'm going to go, whoop, I'm going to make the silly sound so that you know I'm switching modes. And I'm now presenting my UX work. So I'm presenting UX work now. Whoop. Let's walk through an example. I'm going to share some designs with you and walk you through the iterations that we'll be making based on what we learned. This design is helping your employees find the most critical and needed parts of your company's human resources website. Your employees want to find information like their paycheck history, find a new career opportunity within the company, information about their health benefits. This is an American company. Our health benefits are tied through our employer. Our researchers learned that these are the most critical parts of your website for your users. And we don't want them to waste any time trying to find things that they need. So now that we know where employees need to go, we want to see how they're going to get there. Will they use the top search bar and search for a term? Will they use the navigation bar across the top? Or will they use the cards as entry points into the journey? So we're going to be conducting some usability testing with these wireframes to understand which navigation features are going to be used by your users. So as you can see, I told them what the page was designed to do, why the components on the page are important to their users, and what actions we're going to take next. And that's the framework, what, so what, now what. So here is a pro tip from Jen. I would say that when in doubt, go with this framework. It's easy to remember, and it covers a lot of important ground. So if you forget all the frameworks we're going to go through today, just remember what, so what, now what. All right, let's move on to another framework called OSB. And OSB stands for opportunity, sometimes problem. So opportunity, solution, benefit. That's OSB. And similar to the previous framework, it helps you structure your answer with providing some context. Then you talk about the solution. And then finally, you talk about how your solution benefits the user or maybe the business. So in the previous example, the what, so what, now what, you talked about what you're going to do next. But with the OSB, you don't talk about what you're going to do next. This is a good framework to talk about where things stand right now without talking about those future iterations. So I'm going to slip into presentation mode and walk through a design. Whoop. This dashboard is for technology account managers to get an overview of their storage environment. Before this design that we see, the information was scattered all over the place throughout our system. And this caused users to have to jump from place to place to get to the information that they need. This consolidated dashboard surfaces the most important statistics and figures and information all in one place. The benefit to our users is they no longer have to navigate to multiple places to get that high-level understanding of their open tickets, their notifications, the status of their devices, and so on. It's all now in one place. So see what I did there? I started with the design or that this information was scattered all over the place, and that's the opportunity. Then I told them what the design solution was, and that this is the dashboard view. And I wrapped up by telling the audience how this dashboard view, this consolidated one place, saves the user time by not going from one place to another. And that's the OSB, or Opportunity, Problem, Solution, Benefit Framework. Pretty straightforward, huh? All right, let's move on to the STAR framework. And maybe you've heard of STAR: situation, task, action, and result. I had heard of this, and I didn't even know this was a spontaneous talks framework. And where I've heard of the STAR framework is that you should use this when you're answering in a job interview and a prospective employer has asked you a question, and you use the STAR framework to provide an answer. So situation is the background or the context. You tell them just enough of the backstory for them to understand what's going on. T is for task, and that's what needs to be done. You tell them why something has happened or what needs to be addressed. And the action is what you did, how you did it. You might even go into the tools or the processes that you used to do that thing. And then R is the result, and that's simply explaining what happened. You tell them about your accomplishments, maybe your success or what happened in the end. And similar to what we talked about in other frameworks, STAR provides a little bit of context. It talks about what you did and why you took action on something and what was the result or what happened in the end. So I'm going to walk through an example of a before and after design. So again, I'm going to switch into presentation mode, and let's pretend I'm sharing this design with my team so that they can see how design has been revised based on research. Ooh. First, I'm going to walk you through what the previous design had, and that's what we're looking at here. And then I'm going to talk about what has been updated based on the research that we conducted. So here we go. The original design started with a few opportunities for improvement. And I learned about this through my research. For example, users expected to be interacting with these cards. In other words, they expected to be able to click on the card and go in deeper for finding more information. They also mentioned that the logos didn't really feel that consistent. Now keep in mind, these are pieces of a software suite, kind of like Microsoft, and how Microsoft has multiple little software opportunities within a software suite. So they felt like the logos were sort of similar, but they weren't really a cohesive package. And then also they thought that the information wasn't clear. It was full of buzzwords and marketing speak and just didn't really give a good summary of what this product really did. So based on the research, the design opportunity that we took was to improve these cards to entice the user to go deeper into gathering information. The new design now, it addresses the concerns I just mentioned. A person can click on these boxes to get more information. The icons, though they're different shapes and have different things, they are consistent in color and style and treatment. So they feel like pieces of a unified package. And then finally, we had our UX content strategist rewrite the descriptions to be more clear. And the result of this redesign is an organization of products that feel like pieces of a larger unified software suite. And they also have a way to drill down and to get more information about each individual product. So again, I applied the STAR framework to explain a redesign based on research. And the situation was the flaws in the design. The task was to conduct the research and find the areas of improvement. The action was the design updates based on what we learned from research. And then finally, result is the design changes for the better. Situation, task, action, and result. The next one I'm going to talk about is PREP, and that's point, reason, example, point. And this nice little framework, you state a fact or the point. Then you give the reasons why you think that's your point. You provide some evidence or some examples for your point. And this is where you talk about why you know your point is true. And then you conclude by stating the point again, just in case anybody forgot what your point was. And I think that this approach, this prep, is really great for presenting user research, as I see someone mentioned in the chat. So I'm going to switch into presentation mode. Whoop. Based on in-depth user interviews from various user groups in the security analyst department, I'm going to share a design recommendation that will set up our security analysts for success when they need to review incident or problem tickets. Let's focus on the overview box here on the left. It surfaces the critical information our users want to see on an incident ticket. After talking to users who need to monitor security situations, like Beth in the private investing brands, I learned what was really important to be in front and center to her. First, she wants to see the severity of the incident. And you can see that in the top line here with the number 3. Beth also wants the ability to follow a ticket and stay up on status updates. Sometimes incidents can last for days or weeks, and Beth doesn't want to forget about them. So she can hit that star and follow an incident. And finally, based on users of this system and sharing this concept test with them, we validated this design. And so we feel confident that this box represents the final design for a usable and accessible summary box for incident tickets. So this is what I love about the prep framework. It's very straightforward. Here's what's important. This is the reason why it's important. Here's an example that illustrates why it is important. And wrapping it up with a pretty bow. Here's my point again, just in case you forgot. I want to move on to the next framework, which actually has its roots in the American military. And this idea BLUF stands for bottom line up front. The idea is simple. State the most important information up first. It's especially important in military situation. Like say it's wartime. You don't have time to fart around and give all the details. You have to give the most important information first. And that's what BLUF is all about. And the way you do this is when you're sharing like research findings is to include your executive summary right at the beginning. And for those who are not familiar with the executive summary, it's named for those pesky executives who don't have time to read the entire report. Just give them the most important details up front. And then, time permitting, you can go into details like methodology, additional findings, recommendations, and so on. Don't bury the lead. Exactly. Let me walk through an example. Well, before I do that, let me a little bit of context. I'm sharing some card sort results, and here are the final recommendations for a menu structure. So this is what I would say. Here is the final recommendation for the way the Athena Greek Cafe menu should be structured. Grilled vegetables should be under fillings. Hummus should be categorized as a side. Plus, for those who consider hummus a topping for a meal, it should also be put under sauces and toppings. And these findings are based on card sorts that I conducted with dining customers. They told me where they expected these menu items to be found. And in this example, I showed the final result. I gave them a few nuggets of important findings that the test revealed. And then I backed up with the research method, which is a card sort. So BLUF simply means don't start with the fluff. Now, I want to switch gears for a second and talk about a spontaneous talk framework that's less about presenting your work and more about answering things on the spot. And that's ADD. Answer, detail, describe, value. Answer is answer the question quickly and concisely. D is provide a little bit of detail, to answer the question. And the second D is for describe value. And this is where you show the real impact or the value of your answer. I'll admit this approach might take a little bit more mental organization than some frameworks, but these frameworks are a little bit more about like keeping them handy in your memory so that you can refer to them and when you need to answer quickly. And you want to, and they're helpful to make you sound super smart. And we love to sound super smart. Okay, so let me illustrate the ADD, spontaneous talk framework, with an example. Let's say a stakeholder asked me a question. That the stakeholder asked me, is this the right level of detail on the mobile app? Ooh, yes. This design provides the right information on a mobile view. In our research, we heard from Robert, who's a system admin. And Robert's sitting at home on his couch, surfing his mobile phone. And he gets notification that Tabitha, seen here, can't access her servers. Robert doesn't want to open his laptop and give her access. He's already on his mobile phone. So we tested this concept with users like Robert to understand if this is the right level of detail, one, to look at the information and make a decision, and two, take action. And according to Robert, this mobile view has the critical detail that he needs to do that. Make a decision and give Tabitha the permission she needs right here on his mobile app. So for this example, I answered the question. Yes, we learned in concept testing that this mobile app has the right level of detail for our users. And then I went into detail describing what Robert values and what's important to him to make a decision, and wrapped up by showing that it is the right level of detail for him to grant permissions. So I hope that you can see how ADD, or answer, detail, describe value, is another simple way to answer a person's questions. But you're also showing a little bit of the value, not just answering yes or no. Whew, now, I get it. We went through a lot today, and I know the last thing you want to do is like, oh, what abbreviation did Jen talk about? But that's not really the point. The point is I want you, again, to know of these frameworks so that you can look at them as a tool in your toolbox, right? And I know that it's going to take a little bit of practice to get used to doing these. In fact, I recommend that you write down and practice when you have to present some work. I've done it. I've definitely done it to get more familiar and more comfortable using these frameworks in my mind on the fly. And as I mentioned earlier, here is all the frameworks that we went through today. And so if you're interested in taking a screenshot, this is the one that I would recommend. Whew, I guess we did go through a lot of frameworks in a short time, huh? And again, I know it's a lot. And if you find that you're starting to panic a little bit and don't recall which framework to go with, just go with the what, so what, now what framework. It's versatile and it's really easy to remember. So as for today's talk, now what? Well, I'm going to end with a compelling quote. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. And so my hope for you today is to give you the tools to get to the other side of fear. Again, these spontaneous talk frameworks can help you overcome your anxiety by organizing your thoughts and presenting and articulating a better crafted answer. So go out there and get to the other side of fear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen, for such a fabulous and super practical talk. I hope people go away with and just try a couple of those and see how they work. Are you going to head over to the Q&A session where folks can follow you and ask some questions in detail? We don't have any in chat.
Absolutely.
Okie dokie. I will say goodbye and thank you. I will hit the button to be off stage.
Thank you.
and see you later.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.